What is it about true crime that just reels you in? Is it truly the seeking of justice for those involved? Or is it just exciting? Is it something that just runs through your mind and you try to figure out the puzzle of how the crime happened, how it played out, and what the end result will be? I'm going to bring you over to a different side of that. I'm going to walk you through a true crime that hit home in my heart at a very young age that affected my family. And then I'm going to walk you through what it's like to be an inmate in the jail when the suspects that committed that crime come in the door and you're expected to handle it. I'm ARHayes, Convict's Thoughts. Let's go all the way back. It's a rewind moment. 1998, just after the Christmas holiday season. Right after the New Year. College kids coming back to the campus. Little town, Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's pretty close to the border, so it's a party town. It's about 80,000 people or so. Great university, New Mexico State University. My family had raised us there in Las Cruces, New Mexico for many of years, yet I had graduated years before, not only from high school, but unfortunately into a criminal side as well. So in 1998, I was actually back from the penitentiary being housed into the local jail in Las Cruces, New Mexico, when I placed a simple phone call from our 24-hour lockdown pod. Well, 23 hours, 1 hour out, but it's still the same thing. It's a lockdown pod, only one person out at a time. So I was out using the phone and just calling to check on my parents and seeing how they were doing. Got the news. Kind of shocked me. Wasn't expecting it at all. Young lady, Carly Martinez. Don't know if you remember the case. Don't know if you ever heard about it. I'll give you some of the details because it's pretty gruesome and not one that's enjoyable to talk about. Bright, beautiful young lady, 18 years young. Just getting started in life and heading off to college. Her family, El Paso, Texas, very hard-working family, raising the children the best that they could. My family knew the Carly Martinez family. I didn't personally get to know her too well, considering I was a couple years older and, of course, dabbling into my own life's adventure. But I do remember seeing her from time to time. I remember seeing her at the dinner table at many family gatherings or even holiday gatherings. We chatted every once in a while, but, I was older. I didn't pay much attention to the younger kids running around the table. But in 1998, she'd grown up. She was now an adult, 18 years old, ventured away from home. Not too far from her family, though, because she really adored her family. They adored her and spoiled her with all the love possible. She came out to Las Cruces to attend New Mexico State University. I guess it was nice for her parents to know that my parents weren't too far away. They could always check in on her if necessary, but at the age of 18, you know how you just kind of soar. You spread your own wings. You're not going to be monitored. You're not going to be watched. You're just going to do your thing, and you're going to grow, and you're going to learn. Carly decided to go ahead and accept a date opportunity with a young man named Jesse Avalos. Just a tad bit older than her as well. Didn't even attend the university, even though that's where they met. They began talking. He began asking her to go on dates. She didn't accept at first. It wasn't quite her type. But through time, he must have won out, and they went ahead and ended up going out on a date. Didn't seem like much of a date. It started out at a skating ring. Las Cruces, New Mexico. That roller skating ring seemed to be pretty popular. Might have been one of the only things in town to do outside of going out to drink. Sadly, not long after the roller skating ring endeavor, that's exactly what they ended up doing. They ended up going out and hitting the town and jumping from bar to bar. I probably shouldn't throw out the secret, but unfortunately, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, a little college town, a little party town, it wasn't uncommon for people under the age of 21 to go out and have a drink or two. People just kind of overlooked it, turned their head because everybody seemed to know everybody. They were all watching out for each other, so it seemed like it would be okay. As a matter of fact, one of the college mates of Carly Martinez just happened to bump into her that night at the bar, sat down to say hello, and got the worst feeling ever in his stomach when one of the two men Carly was at the bar with, that's right, the date went from one man, Jesse Avalos Jr., to two, as you now have to add Robert Desnoyers into the mix. Carly's little college buddy got the realization real quick that Robert Desnoyers was not a man to be played with. He seemed to be very dominant over Carly and her attention, which seemed odd because Carly hadn't even started the date with him. She was actually out with Jesse. But Robert Desnoyers was the bigger, stronger, older, and unfortunately, the ex-convict that had already done some time himself. So, he dominated what was going on. Fast forward a few hours and morning came around. Carly Martinez's roommates awoke. She was nowhere to be found. Nobody had heard from her. Pretty odd because Carly was typically very responsible and seemed to stay in touch with everybody. And all of a sudden she hadn't been heard of by anybody. Police began their interrogations and began speaking with different people in regards to where Carly could possibly be. They immediately got in touch with both Jesse Avalos and Robert Desnoyers, as they were the last ones to have been known to not only see Carly, but actually be with her. Of course, neither one of them had anything to say, and they wouldn't give up any information whatsoever other than they had dropped her off late in the night at a payphone just outside the campus. I don't think the detectives truly believed that story because they sure had an inkling that they need to look a little deeper into this too, especially Desnoyers, because he just rubbed people the wrong way, and they just had a gut feeling that something was very, very wrong. So that's exactly what they did. They asked Desnoyers if he was willing to give up his DNA sample and everything of that nature, which they didn't need to do that. He was already in the system. But he did anyway. Foolish he was. They asked him if they could search his vehicle. He had a little pickup at the time, and he, for some reason, allowed them to do it. Again, not the smartest tool in the shed, considering they immediately found blood in the center console of his truck, exactly where a third person riding in the vehicle would have to be seated. The interrogators quickly were starting to put together a bad puzzle, but they were a few pieces shy, so they reached out to Jesse. It was time to do a little investigating there as well. Pretty crazy that the minute they began searching his apartment, his shower curtain gave up enough evidence. It didn't look good for him either. His blood was mixed with Carly's blood on his very own shower curtain. Not even smart enough to get rid of the evidence, these two. And the unraveling began as they sat in the interrogation room, separated from each other to tell their stories. Sadly, it's not a good story to tell. It's not one that anybody ever wants to hear. It's sickening, it's heartbreaking, and it actually changes people's lives. Not only those that are involved in the crime, but those that would have to bump in to the defendants in the relatively near future. Carly Martinez was stabbed over 30 times in the desert just outside Las Cruces, New Mexico. They tortured the young lady. A pair of pliers was used as if it was a knife. A knife was used as well. They had thought that they were taking her out to the desert just to have a sexual interaction. But she declined. Not only declined, but she strongly declined with a little bit of fight behind her. So instead, they took advantage of her. She was raped, she was stabbed, she was abused, and then she was lit on fire. Left just to die in the desert. And that's what she did. Took months before her body was found. Even after all the interrogating and finding out exactly what these two were all about, telling on each other back and forth, blaming the other for what had possibly happened, never giving up the exact location, and never telling the absolute truth. All they could do was point at each other, put the blame solely on the other, as if one of them didn't interact at all. Didn't take long for the whole truth to come out, and they did find the body. Both were obviously arrested and charged. Many of charges. But I still remember the day when I had called my mom and she had told me that they had been arrested. Even gave me the names. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is I had already been to the penitentiary, so I was already learning what the actual prison life and politics are all about. Just because I'm brought back from the penitentiary to the local jail to face new charges doesn't mean I'm outside of those politics. Whether it be fair or not fair, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. It's not always understandable for those that haven't been there or done that, but when an individual or two that are charged with the types of crimes both Avalos and Desnoyers are charged with, there's expectations on people that are going to be around them of what needs to happen to those individuals. It's called a green light. When a green light is turned on somebody, that means anybody and everybody that has opportunity has to take it and handle the said individual. My wife and I, right before I did this video, we were discussing it, and she didn't want me to come across as if violence was something that I enjoy or what I would like to do in my life, and it's obviously not, because if it was, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. But the sad thing about it is when you're within the prison politics, what has to be done has to be done. It doesn't matter who you are, because if you don't handle it and you miss that opportunity, you're on that green lighted list yourself, meaning you will get handled yourself. Thankfully, we were in a segregated unit, and I never got the opportunity to get out of my cell, so I could never actually be held accountable for not taking an opportunity to get at these two. Even though I have to admit, I do have to state, It might have been nice to have had that opportunity, because what they did to this young lady, it's disgusting. I mean, it's just even hard to speak words of, even to this day. And we're talking about years upon years later. She had a bright future in front of her, and these two individuals not only took it from her, but they did it in the most disrespectful way possible. Now, I do know that the two, both Disnoyers and Avalos, made it through their jail time, and both were sentenced to life upon life upon life in the penitentiary. I haven't really kept up to what's transpired with them within that penitentiary sentence, because I'm sure they've had to be in protective custody, and they've obviously been on different types of yards than anything I would ever be housed on. But I do know this, and I can tell you this for a certain fact. Jesse Avalos's brother was jailed much later down the road in that same jail in Las Cruces, New Mexico, on very simple charges of burglary. He didn't make it 5 days before they got him and killed him. All because of his brother. It wasn't even anything the young man had done. He was just a simple burglar. But that's a prime example. If you have a family member that's green lighted and they can't get him, it doesn't matter when somebody else in that family comes in. They're going to get got. Young man lost his life just because of his brother's actions. That might not be fair, but it's prison politics, even in a jail. Follows you no matter where you are. So here we sit, coming into the end of 2023, almost 2024. We're about a month away from the anniversary of Carly Martinez's actual death. 26 years down the road. She was 18 when she passed, so 44 she would be. 44 years old, just a couple years shy of where I am today. And I'm still here with you speaking about it. And I wish she was too. It's sad when these types of crimes affect so many. But I hope that it kind of opens the eyes for people out there. And I want you guys to understand. One, I can say prison politics do help many families within that grieving process of how disrespectfully their children were taken in a manner that includes sexual assault or rape or something of that nature, because prison politics will help find the justice for those individuals. Now, many need to understand prison politics is not going to find justice in some of the cases that so many think that they will. Taking of a life, murder, does not get somebody a green light within the penitentiary system. If you take the life of a college woman or man, a husband or a wife, a co-worker, that does not mean that prison politics is going to handle you when you get to the yard. That's the type of crime that's seen every day. Heck, even nowadays, I've seen those types of crimes on minimum level security yards. Not always, but it does happen. There are certain crimes that call for certain prison politics, and many cry out saying that there are crimes that deserve that type of punishment when they get to the ARH. Doesn't always happen, but I can tell you this, and I'll just kind of leave you with this food for thought. Prison can beat anybody and everybody down. The punishment is real. But some, it's just not punishment for. They find it to be an enjoyable place. Those are the type of people that can never be reformed. There are some of us that when we do get released, we leave all of that nonsense at the gate. And we come home to try to better ourselves and move forward. And that's when the actual reform of life happens. And I'm very fortunate. I had somebody to come home to that was willing to support me through the hardest of times and help me walk forward in life to where I could be here now, talking with you and sharing the experiences. This is one. The Carly Martinez case was one of the very first ever cases I dealt with in the true crime world. So when people say that I haven't been around to see cases on my very own that would draw me into true crime, I remember how this affected not only my family, but I remember how it affected her family. Because I was right there. And I was in jail just feet away from the two men that took her life. Just a little food for thought, a little story in my life. I hope you guys have a great night. I'm ARHayes, Convict's Thoughts, discussing the Carly Martinez murder, 1998. Have a great night.